Hey guys, and welcome to the Kurima podcast where we talk business, finance, entrepreneurship, and real estate. I'm your host, Jason Kurima, and I have a very special guest today, Alyssa Vaughn. Alyssa, thanks for coming today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I just want to kind of dive into your story and how you got started. I know you own A-list properties and you own, I know you're doing several flips and you have a lot going on. So I just want to kind of see how you got started with that and how someone might be able to start with, because you kind of started with nothing, right? And then you kind of built your way up, right?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. So how could someone kind of do what you did to get to where you're at?
So there's lots of different ways to get where you're going. I didn't start out with a bunch of money or like a family who just gave me a bunch of money to get started. I just worked really hard and I managed a bunch of rental property and was able to use that and kind of leverage the money I was making monthly to get a loan on my first property and then use the equity in that one to really build and progress that business.
Okay, well, that's cool.
Yeah.
So how old were you whenever you bought your first property?
I bought my first property when I was 18.
Oh,
I
wow.
got my license at 18 and that's when I really started. And I bought it with my dad, and the deal was if I helped fix it up, that he would split the profits with me. So that's another way to get started is to, partner with somebody who maybe does have money when you don't, and you can do the labor side of it. Yep. And that's what I did. And it was a house here in Monette. I still drive by it every once in a while, and I thought I was just super rich. It sold for $30,000, and I thought it was the best thing ever.
Wow.
But that's really what got me started.
Yeah. I have a lot of experiences, like whenever you do your first deal or whenever you first start, it's like so exciting. Mm-hmm. And then, that's really cool. So, when did you start A-list?
I started A-list. Well, A-list kind of evolved. So A-list was, just to kind of give you the whole background, when I got my license when I turned 18, I was going to college. I just did it. My mom was in real estate. My grandma was in real estate. They were like, back then in 2006, when you could get your broker's license, when you didn't have to sell for 2 years, you could go get your real estate license and then get your broker's license right away. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get my real estate license. I went and tested and got my broker's license too. And I'm like, I'll just always have this in my back pocket. I can leave my license sitting at my mom's office. And, maybe when I come home from school in the summers, I can help her out. So I did that. I went to school. I had my first daughter when I was 21. And so at that point, I kind of had to really reevaluate what I wanted to do as far as a career. They gave me the flexibility to be a mom and be in business too. Yep. So at that point, I decided to get more into real estate. And this was like 2009 when the market was absolutely horrible. And so I had to be kind of creative in what I was going to do. I was working at the office every day, and it got to the point where nobody was selling anything. So a mentor of mine who still sells real estate in Aurora, Dick Bueller, he came to me and he said, you should really think about managing apartment complexes. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. And he's like, well, you collect rent for people, take care of their problems, answer any questions they have for the person that owns the property. And he got me set up with the Tiffany Court Apartments there in Aurora, and I started managing those. And from there, it just kind of blew up. Over the years, we had 300 rentals that we were managing.
Wow.
Yeah. And so nobody else did it at the time. Maybe I was the only crazy one that wanted to deal with that many tenants, but it really was something that took off. And so that's how A-list got started. I sold A-list to Elite Properties back in 2015. I was just kind of burnt out with rentals, and I wanted to strictly focus on sales. And so me and my mother-in-law, Julie, we opened A-list here in Monette in 2015.
Okay.
So that's kind of the evolution. A-list was in Aurora, and then we sold, and then A-list is in Monette now.
Yeah.
So
now, how many agents do you guys have?
We have 13.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So that first year, how many did you just start, you and your mother-in-law?
Yeah, we started me and my mother-in-law, and we kind of had both done our own thing. Julie started at Remax, and she kind of had a following at that point. She's been in Monette mostly her whole life. And then I had my investor group of people that I would work with. I did my own flips and stuff. So I wasn't too worried about how we were going to make money. We could have made it on our own.
Did you end up going to college or?
I did go to college. I had a full ride scholarship to the MSU or University of Arkansas. I went to both those schools. I started at MSU, then transferred to U of A. And it's kind of funny. People don't even believe me most of the time when I say this, but I started out as like an ag major. I was really into agriculture and FFA and all that stuff. And that's how I ended up going to school for basically free. I had a scholarship through Tyson's, and I grew up on a farm, and I really wanted to be a veterinarian, which I look back now and think, what a strange thing. Like, people wouldn't even think that about me, but yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to do. And then I switched to more of an ag business background. I went to Walton School of Business when I was at U of A. And when I came back here, like I said, I ended up having my first daughter. And at that point, I was like, I don't want an 8-to-5 job. I don't want to be in corporate America. I'm not real good at following directions or people telling me what to do. So that's how I kind of got started. I don't like to sit in one place all day. I like to have some freedom.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
What was one of the best lessons that you've learned?
So a big thing for me, I'm a little bit older than you and some of you other young guys, but when I was probably your age, I was really big into, that's kind of when I got started. And I was big into, letting everybody know what I was doing, and worried about what other people were doing. I was like, oh, I got to be better than her. I have to sell more than this agent. I need to be the top person. And I was just consumed by everyone thinking I was successful and trying to be successful. And now, as you get older and you do reach a certain level of success, you really just don't care anymore about what other people think or say, or what their opinion is of you or what you're doing. And a life lesson for me, and what I really try to live by right now, is I like to move in silence, is what I tell people. Some people are like, what do you even do for a living? What do you do during the day? And it's not something that I just broadcast to everybody, every project that I'm doing or every business I own or what I have my hand in at the moment. And I just kind of like it that way. I like to be not secretive, but a little bit private. I mean, I don't have to keep up with anybody anymore. There's nobody in my mind that I think, oh, I wish I could be like her or have what he has. I just do it and go get it if it's something that you want. I just don't try to keep up with anybody or impress anybody. If you want to work with me, awesome. If you don't, that's okay too. I'm pretty comfortable at my age in my own skin. Yeah. I guess.
Well, that's awesome. I definitely struggle with that a lot, and that's something I'm always working on, trying to, I think I need to work on focusing and seeing how God looks at me rather than how other people look at me.
That's right.
That's definitely something I struggle with. So I really like that. That really helps.
And as you get older, you'll realize it's your kids you worry about, what they think of you. Yeah. And I know you have a baby, but when she gets older, you're really going to be like, okay, I'm more concerned with my kids seeing me do these things, and my kids knowing about my projects, and my kids seeing me work hard to achieve my goals, instead of my neighbor or the guy down the road or my competition. So that's kind of just how you'll naturally evolve, I think. So to me, that's one thing I've really learned. Another huge thing for me is what you spend your energy on and who you give your energy to. So this is something I'm really big about. Is I think there's two kinds of people in the world. There's people who make energy, and there's people who suck your energy. And I know you've probably been around somebody before and you're like, oh, I'm exhausted just after talking to that person. Or you've been around somebody that you're like, wow, I feel more energetic after I spoke to that person. Yeah. And to me, there's those two kinds of people, and you have to really focus on who's drawing you down and who's giving you the energy to do more and be successful. And so that's one thing. I really like to spend my energy and time on projects that make me happy, around people who make me happy, and not the negative ever. Because that's something, as I've gotten older, I just realized I can just be drained at the end of a week, depending on who I'm having to deal with or what I'm having to deal with. Or I can have lots of energy and have the time and the effort, to put into another project if I'm saving my energy for myself and not just giving it away to people who are just kind of taking it from you all the time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're very successful. So what drives you? Have you always just been kind of like that, or?
I think I've always been kind of like that. I'm pretty competitive. I To me, it's more about being creative too. I've always been kind of a creative person. I like to make things pretty, I guess. Even I have a clothing store too. So everything's always revolved around like creativity or fashion or some kind of art. And then I also have another side of me that's more business minded where, I'm kind of type A and I'm kind of creative too. So it's kind of mashed into this thing and I'm just me. But I think I've always been like that. I grew up with a mom who was super successful and a grandma who was super successful. So, just watching the women in my life who are strong leaders and still to this day are just strong human beings, I feel like that's kind of what made me who I am. And I think too, I had a kid at a young age. When you're 21 and you have a kid, you have to figure it out. You don't have your 21 to 25 to be wild and crazy and party and find your way. Like I was like, okay, I'm going to make this one way or the other. And when your back's to the wall, you just do it, and that's really what kind of made me who I am. And I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah. So is that what you would advise someone that maybe they're starting out small and they don't have a lot, is just to work on their mindset and just go after their dreams? Or how would you advise someone that really wants to accomplish a lot in life, but they haven't done a whole lot yet?
I think it's a combination of two things. I always tell my kids, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right either way.
Yeah.
A lot of it is your mindset. And it sounds silly and people are like, oh, there's so many other things that matter or come into play with that, but not really. If you have work ethic and a good mindset, that's really the only two things you have. So many people want to sit around and wait for things to come for them or come to them. Opportunities aren't necessarily going to come to you. You have to go out and find them. And another thing is just being able to be uncomfortable. Like you don't necessarily aren't comfortable sitting here doing this podcast every day, but it's getting you to the point where this is along the journey of your dream and what you need to do to make things happen. And I tell my kids that too. My daughter wants to know what time a store closes or a restaurant closes or how long the wait is. I said, well, you need to call and find out. And she's 14 and she's like, oh my gosh, Mom, I don't want to call. Well, why not? Because she's uncomfortable. But that's something even starting in real estate, cold calling people is the most uncomfortable thing I think you can do. And that's what I always tell my agents to do. You need to be uncomfortable because that's how you achieve growth. If everybody does it, everybody's going to be getting ahead more than you, So you got to do the things nobody else wants to do. Yeah. But it's definitely, to me, a combination of putting in the hard work and having the mindset. If you think you're going to fail, then you probably will. But I'm a big believer in, I don't ever see myself failing at something, but at the same time, I always try to have an exit strategy, if that makes sense. So like, I don't see myself failing, but I always have a way to get out of something if I need to. So then in my mind, I'm like, okay, there's no negative to this scenario. I'm going to go for it. If it doesn't work, I have an exit strategy. And so it's a win-win either way. And when you set your mind up that way, you just go through things and you don't worry about failing. And so generally you don't.
Yeah. And like calculated risk, like knowing what you're getting into and then always having that exit strategy out of it.
That's exactly right. So I think if you're young and you're just starting out, you got to take a risk at some point, but like you said, it needs to be a calculated risk. You have to have a strategy to get out of it. And then that's just how you start your stepping stone to getting where you need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's actually kind of funny that you brought up your 14-year-old daughter and how she was scared to call. I was that same kid.
Yeah.
Like I hated calling and like just asking like, what are your hours or whatever it was. I absolutely hated that. But my dad kept pushing me to do that all the time. And it kind of pushed me out of that comfort zone. So now I can pick up the phone and call anyone and it's not that intimidating.
Yeah. Once you do it a couple of times, you realize, what were you scared of?
Exactly.
You know what? And that's what I tell her. I said, what's the worst they're going to tell you? No? Like, what are you so scared of calling? And it's just that mentality you have to overcome. And then once you do, you're like, wow, that wasn't hard. And then the next one's easier and the next one's easier until it's just a normal thing that you do.
Yeah. And that's the same with real estate or anything.
Yeah.
That first project that you do is the hardest. And after that, it just gets easier. You get those systems and then you start developing everything in place to where you know what you're doing, you know what you're looking for.
Right.
And that just helps you to keep building and keep growing.
Right. And everything's a learning experience, good, bad, or indifferent. You've learned something from each project you do. And it just helps you to make each one a little bit more successful every time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I use believe in yourself in all of my posts. And to me, it's really important because I feel like I have to believe in myself and go after my dreams and take action and do all these things to provide the lifestyle that I want. So what does believe in yourself mean to you?
To me, believe in yourself is just one of those things, and having confidence in your ability to do things. Having confidence in your ability to figure things out. What I've learned in life is that half of life is putting out fires. When people ask me, what do you do for a living? That's what I do. I put out fires all day long, every day, every week. And there's always something that's going to be thrown at you, especially in the real estate business. I tell my agents this too. They're like, well, what if this happens? Can you tell me every scenario I might encounter? I've been doing this for 17 years, and there's still things that people bring to me, and I'm like, I don't know. This is weird. I've never had to deal with this before. This is kind of gray. I don't know what the answer is. And, you just got to figure it out. But that's one thing, believing in yourself is just when things get thrown at me, I'm like, it's fine. We'll figure it out. And it's just your ability to adjust to those weird situations and how you deal with it. But I think that that's a lot of what it's about, is just having confidence in that whatever is thrown at you, you can handle one way or the other.
Yeah. Me and my wife always talk about how everything is figure outable. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a book about it as well. But literally, you can just take any situation that gets thrown at you and you can figure it out. Like, if you have a goal that is like really seems far out of reach, you can kind of reverse engineer it and see, okay, I'm here, but had I achieved this goal, what are the steps I would have taken to get there? And so if you kind of look at it from where you want to be and go backwards, a lot of times it's not that complicated as if you're looking at it from the other angle, looking at, okay, I want to accomplish this, but I'm here. Like, after you kind of look at things in a different perspective, a lot of times it's easier to see that you can accomplish it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just it. And whatever, issues might come along the way, you just have to realize maybe it's just another turn in the path that I need to take to get there. It's not necessarily a straight road. There's lots of different ways to get from point A to B. And so whether that's easy or hard, it's figure outable for sure.
Yeah. So what are a few of your goals that you're working on right now, or maybe a big goal that you want to achieve eventually?
I don't have anything super specific, just to kind of keep doing what I'm doing now, just on a larger scale. At this point, my kids are getting a little bit older. I've been working on setting them up with stuff, purchasing their first rental and,
that's really cool.
Yeah. And so I've been excited about that. We are remodeling one now that the three of them own together. And, at this point, I want to expand their portfolio and teach them how to do what I do. Even if it's not something they want to do for a living, it's something that you can do as an investment, as a side hustle. Just having the knowledge to do that, I think, is important for them, and getting them started off right. Because, the housing prices, when my daughter wants to buy a house, my oldest and definitely my youngest son, who knows what... I don't even think it's affordable now. I don't know how it's going to be affordable for them in their entry-level position jobs trying to afford to buy a house anymore. So I keep that in my mind a lot and think, how can I live my life and set them up with, to be successful, to start their life successful and not have to just super struggle for everything. And, not to just give them things, but teach them how it works. And so that's kind of really what I've been focused on right now, creating more generational type wealth and just being rich, on paper, long-term stuff like that. And just a huge goal of mine is to just have the financial freedom to spend time with them, I won't miss a ball game. I'm at every school event, and that's what's really important to me. And that's a goal that I have, through the next several years of raising them. And my grandma's 90 years old. I like to be able to, at a whim, at any time I want to, go see her or take her to lunch, or if she needs me, just to be there to help her. And that's really my focus right now. And just to do what I do on a larger scale, I've hired some people to help where I can still do all those things, but do my mom duties too.
Yeah. So for me and Haley, it's all about like time freedom and creating like you said, generational wealth and long-term wealth, not just being like rich on paper, like you said. And I really admire you for teaching your kids that at a young age, how to flip a house, what that process looks like. And man, that's really cool. That's something that me and Haley have always wanted to do.
They
as
weren't
they get
real
older.
thrilled when I showed them the house that I purchased for them. They're like, "Wait, Mom, you took our money out of our bank account and you bought what?" And I'm like, "Just wait." So my son, he's 6, and he went over with my husband Jake, and it was kind of a trash out situation. And it was really eye-opening for him to see, wait, this house was in that kind of disarray when you bought it? And I'm like, yeah. And so he helped throw stuff in the dumpster, and they've seen the process from the beginning to, we're kind of at a midpoint now, heading towards the finish line. We're getting ready to do sheetrock and flooring and stuff. And so for them to be able to see the process from what it was to what it can turn into is really cool for me.
Yeah.
And
it'll always have an impact on them too. Like they'll always remember that. So that's awesome.
My older girls are not super fazed by it now. They've seen all the nasty houses. They've helped me clean them out and paint, clean, get ready for different projects. And so they've seen a lot of the before and afters. And so they're not super surprised, but it's just really cool that they get to go through that process. And it's truly their own money. It's their Christmas money and birthday money over the years, and money we've set aside into their savings account. And, I don't want to take it and buy them a car, because by the time they can have a car, they could have a house and a car.
Yeah.
From the money they've made from flipping that house or renting that house or making it an Airbnb or whatever we decide to do with it. But that's kind of where I want to be right now, is just helping them to build their portfolio while I do mine too.
Well, that's really cool. Like you're really teaching them like sweat equity and what the equity of doing all that work can really turn into.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. That's been a goal of ours for me and Haley for a long time, is to, like, before we even had kids, we always wanted to be able to do that and go alongside them and teach them that stuff.
Yeah. So. And it's stuff that anybody can do. A 14-year-old and a 12-year-old can, clean trash out of a house. They can paint. They can, wipe down cabinets and baseboards. There's lots of things that they don't have to be super skilled for, that they're still working through the process. And they did a house this summer and really helped me through that. And they weren't super thrilled about it, but after it's done, it's like, wow, look what you did. And now I sold this house and we made money, and look how the whole process works. So It's been fun. I really enjoyed that so far.
Awesome. Well, what is one of your favorite business books, or do you have a few that you would recommend?
So I have, the book that I have in mind is not truly like a book you would list as like a business book, but to me, this is a book that has helped me maybe the most in my business. I've read a lot of business books, and yes, they're good and they have the principles and they teach you how to do things, especially, there's certain books for flipping and things that you can read that teaches you how to walk you through a process. But the one that really sticks out to me is when I was a senior in high school, my mom bought me the book, The Secret by Rhonda Byrne.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's not a business book, but it's a book that literally probably changed the way I think and has made me successful. And it's just about how the law of attraction works and manifesting your dreams and being grateful for things. She has a book that was probably released 3 years ago, and it's like a sequel to the original Secret book. And it's literally her going and meeting with the most successful people in the world. And it all comes down to, these things come to you because you're grateful. Yeah. And I wake up every day and I thank God and I'm grateful for the life that I have. And, my kids being healthy and having a successful business and getting to do what I love every single day. And I think it really boils down to, that's where I always saw myself. I didn't see myself failing. I didn't see myself working an 8-to-5 job. And I didn't see myself struggling to pay my bills. And when you envision your life a certain way and you don't take no for an answer and you're grateful for every little opportunity that comes your way, things just manifest for you in the universe, and God gives you these things. And it's truly like a snowball deal. If you're grateful and you work hard, and you have it in your mindset that you're not going to fail, things just really work out. People always ask me, how do you find these deals? How do you, get the things that you have? And honestly, I laugh because it's like these things just like fall in my lap. And it seems weird, but it's true. I don't necessarily go out anymore and look for stuff. Things just like come to me. And it's because your energy and your gratefulness, it attracts things to you that are meant to be for you.
Yeah, I've absolutely seen that a lot in my life. It's weird. It's like,
it is weird, and people are like, that just sounds weird and that sounds crazy. It is the most true thing. And once you really realize that, it only just like amps itself up, I feel like. Yeah. When you stop worrying about money and worrying about how you're going to do things, things just come to you. And I can think of situations when I was younger where maybe I bought a car and I was like, I don't even know if I can afford this. Or maybe we got a new house and we're like, how are we going to actually make this work? Things just seem to happen when you do things that just kind of levels you up every time. And so I'm never really scared to do, like the next big thing, because it's like you're leveling it up and things will just come to you. Things will fall in your lap. Doors will open for you if you believe that they will, and if you're grateful for the things that you have.
Yeah. One of the things that came to mind is like when I'm explaining it to people, I always tell them it's just like gravity. Like you can't see gravity, you can't see the law of attraction, but based on my personal experiences, I know it's there. Like it's a real law that I believe exists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people. My mom's one of those people who makes like a mood board kind of thing. She has like pictures of things she wants or places she wants to go. And when you visualize those things a lot, you're able to manifest them into happening. If you see a picture of a beach every day, or you have a picture in your office of a really nice house, eventually your mind programs itself. That's like, that's the top priority in your mind. And whether you know it or not, that's where your thoughts are, and that's where your actions are taking you. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I actually I've had a vision board for years, but I recently, we put a bunch of pictures together and I have it as my wallpaper on my phone.
Yeah.
So every time I pick up my phone to look up the time or something, it sends a subconscious message to myself on like what I'm really after in life. So like, I know that's really kind of deep, but I feel like it really is a real thing. Like
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
And that's why I know it's, that's not a business book, but when you ask me, like, that's the one to me that has had the biggest impact on my life and my business, besides reading, all the other how to or what not to do. That's really what it all boils down to, I think.
Yeah. So what are some of the obstacles that you've overcome? And like, if you look back on some of those things, like what do you think brought you through them? Like, is there anything that you're like, man, I'm never going to figure this out, and then you figured it out, or any situations like that?
So for me, being like a female in business, a big thing I have, and I know I talk about my kids a lot, but that's important to me, is like mom guilt. I'm sure Haley and you kind of get that feeling too, where it's like, am I doing too much in the business side? Am I, missing things with my kids because I have to work or certain things? So to me, that was one of the biggest obstacles. And like I kind of said before, I've hired people to run certain things for me so I can have that freedom. Yep. So I feel like at this point in my life right now, I have a really good work balance with my life balance and my work balance. Another thing is, just getting to spend time with my husband. So now we go do a lot of things together. We go check houses together, or we'll go look at a piece of property and he'll go with me. Or, we have to pick up a sign or go check to see if a yard needs mowed. And so it's funny, but that's like the time we spend together is we go look at houses. Yeah. And when we first got married, he was like, that needs to be bulldozed down. I'd get a project house and he's like, Alyssa, why? He's in the excavating business, so he thinks everything needs bulldozed down. Yeah. But over the years, he's really gotten more confident in my abilities too. And so he's like, oh, you'll make that look great. And so that's something we do to spend time together. I really have a village that helps me live my life. And that's really how I do things. I have multiple businesses. I have at my store, Kayla, I have an amazing store manager. She literally runs the whole show. She can do it all. I trust her. In my home life, I have my kids' babysitter, Veronica, and my grandma. They're like best friends. They take care of my kids, pick them up from school, clean my Airbnbs for me. And then my mother-in-law and I both own the real estate office together. So she really pulls a lot of weight on stuff that I'm not good at. And I do stuff that she's not interested in doing. And then I have Shondi now, who's in the title work business. And she really has kind of helped me, again, level up to now I can do a lot more because I'm not doing all the background stuff. And to me, you can do everything if you have an amazing group of people to help you. And that's exactly what I have.
Yeah, play on other people's strengths. Focus on what you're good at and then hire the other people that do the stuff that you're not necessarily the best at or that you might not have the time for.
That's exactly right. So that's kind of how I've overcome that. I used to try to do everything and I wouldn't delegate anything because I'm like, well, nobody's going to do it how I would want it to be done.
Yeah.
But that's not true. You have to let go of some control or you'll get burnt out. You can't do it all and have your family too.
Yeah. So when did you start realizing that, that mentality that you can't do everything yourself, that you need to start hiring people?
I got to a point where I was really burnt out with real estate, probably around the time I opened my store. That's one of the reasons I was like, I need to do something else. I need to do something creative. So I opened Flying V. And then I was like, okay, Flying V started out and I was like, this is going to be just a hobby. This is something, it won't be too serious. I'll just kind of do it on the side. Well, that was not the case. Apparently it was a big need in the area. And so that really kind of blew up too. And then we moved locations. And since I've had Kayla, she's one of those people that can handle more if you give her more. It took me a while to figure that out, but now she does. She buys stuff. We go to Dallas and I tell her, she's like, what do you want to do for this? What do you want to do for that? I'm like, you're in charge. I don't know why you're asking me. And she's like, oh my gosh, no, I'm not. Yes, you really are. And so I think if you give people more, they can handle it. Yeah. You have to give them the opportunity to rise to the occasion. And that's just taking time. But once you do, and once you trust somebody and realize that they have those abilities, you know that it's in good hands and you can go do so many more projects or so many more things because you have all that good help.
Absolutely. I agree. I've witnessed that myself, like with some of my partners and stuff, they just take it and run with it and they do really well. And they've become more than I think they realized that they would have,
Yeah.
They can just do a lot more than they probably thought they could. So,
right. Yeah. And you wonder, what was I doing the whole time before?
Yeah,
Exactly. And sometimes I'll still catch myself, I'll ask Shondi hey, did you do this? Or did you deposit this? Or did you go check on this? And she's like, I already did all that. And I'm like, I don't even know why I questioned it, So yeah. I'll catch myself doing that. And I'm like, it really helps you not worry too. I'm to a point in my life where I don't worry about stuff anymore. There were so many times where I'd stay up all night and I'd just be stressed and worried and, oh, what if this doesn't work out or this is going to go wrong? And I just don't really do that anymore because you get to a point where you're like, what if it does go wrong? You can't control things. I used to be really big on controlling situations or controlling outcomes or trying to control a person or trying to control myself or my kids or you can't control what happens and you can't control how things play out, but you can adjust to how you react to things. So.
It's really interesting that you say that because I've noticed that a lot lately. I've been working on that and, I earlier you had mentioned that you don't care so much what other people think of you. And so I've been struggling with that, but I've been realizing you can't control everything. Mm-mm. No matter what you do, you just have to do what's best for you and move forward. And that doesn't mean screwing people over or anything. That just means you have to do the best business decision that makes the most sense.
Right.
And so I used to be so concerned about, how people saw me, and I'm working on not caring so much. So.
Yeah. And then when you say not caring so much, it's not like you said, you're not going out trying to do people wrong. It's just you're doing what's best in your heart. And if that's not what somebody thinks you should do, that's really not your problem. Something that I live by, and I tell myself this multiple times a week, is lions don't lose sleep over the opinions of sheep. Ooh. And that is something that I tell myself all the time. it's so true. Like, why do I care what your opinion is of me, good, bad, or indifferent, or what you're gossiping around town, or what you think or don't think you know about me, when that doesn't hurt me? And I don't lose sleep over anything anymore, because you just get to a point where you're like, I know in my heart I'm a good person. I know I'm doing the right thing. I know I'm doing my best. And that's all I can possibly do.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how can people connect with you? Like, do you have Facebook or?
I do. I have Facebook. You can always find me at A-List. I'm usually there all day, most days, or running around looking at houses. Or where you can find me the most these days is at a Monette basketball, volleyball game, football game, at the Mighty Might cheer. So I'm usually always running around, but definitely through Facebook or at A-List, or by phone, email, text, however.
So you started doing some Airbnbs. How is that going?
I currently have 6 Airbnbs, and I'm going to have 9 by the end of next month.
Wow.
So it's going really well. I have one in Purdy, one in Mount Vernon. I have 4 in Monette, and the other 3 I'm doing are going to be in Monette too. They've all been really successful.
Yep. How would you say it compares to a regular rental?
It's similar, but it's different. With regular rentals, you usually get a lower rate per month. You don't have to furnish the property. You don't have to clean the property necessarily all the time. There's a lot more that goes into Airbnb. There's the logistics of it is what I would say is difficult. I have to make sure all the time who's leaving, who's coming in, getting somebody to clean it, making sure the supplies are there, getting the yards mowed. So that's what's a little bit different. You're paying all the utilities, you're furnishing, you're cleaning. There's just a lot more that is hands-on, where a regular long-term rental, you would just rent it, collect the rent every month, and fix it if something breaks. Otherwise, that's somebody else's problem. That's somebody else's house. So there is a little bit of difference with the amount of time and energy that goes into it. The benefits for me are, like I said, I'm more of a creative person. I get to go in and furnish these houses, which I think is fun and cool. And provide almost like an experience for somebody, which I think is neat. So I've stayed in a lot of Airbnbs where, it's nice to go into a house that's so decorated cute, and it's like a boutique kind of feel, where you can go in somewhere and it's different than your home, but it gives you like that vibe, that energy when you get there. And so that's fun for me. The one I have in Mount Vernon is so cute. It's like an old cottage house. And so we furnished it. And I always get so much feedback about, I love this house, just like the vibe and the energy is so neat here. And so that's just another way I can kind of use my creativity that's not flipping a house, where, you can furnish it and make it have that really cool feel for somebody to come visit and use for a little while, and hopefully they want to come back. So I've really enjoyed that. I've gotten really lucky. I haven't had any issues with anybody tearing anything up or...
That's good.
Or anything like that. It's all been a really good experience so far.
Awesome. So what would you say is your favorite thing that you do, like on a daily basis or whatever? Is it designing the houses? Is it furnishing the Airbnbs? Is it showing people houses? What's your favorite thing that you like to do career-wise?
So I don't know if I have a favorite thing. I kind of mentioned earlier where I don't just sit still very often, and I kind of get bored with things. So it's almost like my life has to have such a variety for me to not be bored, if that makes sense, or get burnt out on just one thing. Last year was crazy with the real estate market. I sold so many houses, and you get to a point where you're like, okay, I just feel like I need a breather from that. It's just repetitive, and it takes a lot of time and energy. And so at that point I was like, well, let's do some more Airbnbs. So you can I can control where I want my energy to go, or where I want my creativity to go at the time. Or maybe I'm, sometimes it's the opposite, where if I do a project that's a flip for too long, I feel like mentally I just get exhausted with that, picking out colors and picking out flooring and, making sure this matches that, or the textures go good together. And so that's where I'm like, okay, I need a break from that. So I'm going to go sell some more houses and just give my creativity a break to kind of reset, because your mind, I feel like, gets boggled down when you have too much creativity or too much business stuff going on. So I try to always keep it a mix, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so that's another thing I'm learning as I go, is what is a good balance for me. Like 5 house projects at one time is not good for me if I have to put full creativity. So what I've started doing is either wholesaling some stuff, or maybe I do minor repairs and price the house a little cheaper where it's more affordable for somebody. And then I do like one major renovation. So you can control what you want to do. You don't have to gut a house every single time and make it amazing. You can make these mid-level houses for some people because that's what they can afford and they're happy with it. It's safe, clean, and ready to move in. It doesn't have to have granite countertops every time. It doesn't have to have pretty shower fixtures or a tiled shower or, luxury vinyl flooring. It can have different features, but still be a safe and affordable home for somebody. Or sometimes I buy them and just sell them and don't fix them at all and let somebody else do it. So I just try to control what I'm doing based on what I feel like mentally I need to do and to keep a good balance.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of the same way. I like a variety. Like I don't want to just do the same thing every single day.
Yeah.
So do you have a final message for our audience?
I don't know that I have a final message. I think it's just important that if you want to get started in this, you just do it. A lot of people take time and they're like, oh, well, when I figure this out, or when I learn how to do this, or when the time's right. The time is never going to be right. I hear a lot of people right now saying, oh, I'm not going to buy anything because the rates are too high or the market's too high. There's no right or wrong time ever. You just have to start. You're never going to be fully ready. There's not any kind of perfect circumstance for anybody. You just have to go for it. And like we talked about earlier, if you are making calculated risk, you're being smart about your investments, and you have a clear exit strategy, there's really no bad time. You can still make money when the interest rates are 8 or 9%. A lot of people made money when they were 15%. We're so used to the last, 5 to 8 years, the rates have been low. We feel like this is high. But we got to remember back in like the 70s and 80s, people were paying 15, 20% interest on stuff.
It's crazy.
And they still made things work. There's always opportunity. You just have to be smart about it. And so I think that's something to really take away. Don't turn down a house you want or making money because you're scared of the rates or you're scared of what the market might do. None of us know what the market's going to do. We can make calculated risk and think, okay, if it does do this or if it goes down a little bit, I still have a buffer there to save me. But I think if you're just being smart and you're making those calculated risk and you have a clear exit strategy, you have to just at some point go for it. Because if not, you just never will.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys for watching the Kurima podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe, and God bless you. Have a great day.